The rifle barrel pressed cold against Olivia Lancaster's temple, and the man holding it wore a smile that said he had every legal right to take everything she owned. She stood on the porch of the cabin her father had built with his own hands, watching 3 men on horseback block the morning sun. The one in the middle, Cornelius Hadley, sat tall in his saddle with documents rolled in his left hand while his hired gun kept the Winchester steady against her skin. Behind her, the September wind of 1876 whispered through the Utah mountains, carrying the scent of pine and the promise of an early winter. "This land belongs to me now, Miss Lancaster," Hadley said, his voice smooth as creek stones. "Your father's claim was never properly filed. These documents prove it. You have until sundown to clear out." Olivia's hands trembled, but not from fear. Rage burned through her chest like a brand. "My father worked this land for 8 years. He built everything here. You cannot just take it." "I can, and I will." Hadley unrolled the papers, though he did not offer to let her read them. "The territorial office has no record of Samuel Lancaster ever filing the proper claim. That makes this land available for purchase, which I have legally done. Now I am being generous by giving you until sundown. Most men would have you removed immediately." The gunman pressed the rifle harder against her temple, and Olivia's vision blurred with tears she refused to let fall. Her father had died 3 months ago, thrown from a spooked horse, and she had been managing the ranch alone since. 160 acres of good grazing land, a creek that never ran dry, and a herd of 40 cattle that she had nursed through a hard summer. Everything she had left in this world. "I have papers," she said, her voice cracking. "In the house. My father's documents." Hadley's smile widened. "Then you will find they mean nothing. Now step aside, or I will have my men remove you by force." The gunman grabbed her arm, his fingers digging into her flesh hard enough to bruise. Olivia tried to pull away, but he was twice her size and 3 times as mean. He dragged her off the porch, and she stumbled, falling hard on the packed dirt of the yard. Pain shot through her knees and palms. "That is enough, Hadley." The voice came from the road, deep and calm as a mountain lake. Olivia looked up through the dust to see a lone rider approaching on a bay gelding. He sat easy in the saddle, his hat pulled low against the morning sun. But even from a distance she could see the set of his jaw and the way his right hand rested near the revolver on his hip. Hadley turned his horse. "This does not concern you, stranger. Move along." "I reckon it does concern me when I see 3 men threatening a woman." The rider came closer, and Olivia could see him clearly now. He was young, maybe 25, with dark hair that needed cutting and eyes the color of storm clouds. Dust covered his clothes, and he wore his gun like a man who knew how to use it. "Why do you not pick on someone your own size?" The gunman, who had been holding Olivia, stepped forward. His Winchester now pointed at the stranger. "You best ride on, cowboy, unless you want trouble." "Trouble and I are old friends." The stranger swung down from his horse with an easy grace that made it look like dancing. He walked toward them with slow, measured steps, his spurs jingling softly. "Name is Nathan Zimmerman. I am looking for work, and I heard there might be a ranch around here that needs a hand." "There is no work here," Hadley snapped. "This woman is trespassing on my land, and we are removing her. Now get out of here before you get hurt." Nathan stopped about 10 feet away, his eyes moving from Hadley to the gunman to the 3rd man still mounted. He was calculating odds, Olivia realized. 3 against 1, and all of them armed. But something in his posture said he did not much care about the numbers. "Seems to me like the lady was here first," Nathan said. "What gives you the right to throw her off?" "Legal documents." Hadley waved the papers. "Her father never properly filed his claim. This land is mine." "Let me see those papers." "I do not have to show you anything." Nathan's hand moved to his gun, not drawing it, but making his intention clear. "I am asking politely." The tension stretched tight as a rope about to snap. Hadley's hired men shifted in their saddles, hands moving toward their weapons. Olivia held her breath. certain she was about to watch this stranger die for her sake. Then Hadley laughed, a sharp bark of sound. "You have courage. I will give you that. But you are also a fool." He tossed the papers toward Nathan. "Read them yourself. Not that it will change anything." Nathan picked up the documents and unrolled them, his eyes scanning the text. Olivia watched his face, trying to read his expression. He read slowly, carefully, like a man who had learned his letters late in life but took them seriously now. "These papers say the land was never claimed," Nathan said finally, "but they do not prove it. They just say there is no record at the territorial office in Salt Lake City. Could be the record got lost. Could be it was never entered proper. Could be someone made it disappear." Hadley's smile vanished. "Are you accusing me of fraud?" "I am saying these papers are not proof of anything except that someone at the territorial office could not find a record. That does not mean the record never existed." Nathan handed the documents back to Olivia. "You have papers too, madam?" She nodded, climbing to her feet. Her knees throbbed where she had fallen, but she ignored the pain. "Inside. My father kept everything in a strong box." "Then I suggest we take a look at them before anyone gets thrown off anywhere." Hadley's face had gone red. "Who do you think you are? You have no authority here." "I am someone who does not like seeing a woman get cheated out of what is rightfully hers." Nathan's voice stayed calm, but steel ran through it. "Now you gave her until sundown to clear out. That means you have no business here until sundown. So why do you not ride on back to wherever you came from? And when the sun goes down, if the lady does not have proper claim to this land, then you can come back and take it. But if she does have claim, you will leave her alone, agreed?" "I do not have to agree to anything." Nathan's hand dropped to his gun, and this time he did draw it, smooth and fast. The revolver was out and pointed at Hadley before any of the other men could move. "I am making it a requirement." The world went silent except for the wind. Olivia could hear her own heartbeat thundering in her ears. She had never seen anyone draw a gun that fast, not even the men her father used to hire for the cattle drives. Hadley stared down the barrel of Nathan's Colt, his face now pale as milk. "You are making a mistake, Cowboy." "Probably not my first, will not be my last. Now ride." For a long moment, nobody moved. Then Hadley jerked his reins, turning his horse. "Until sundown," he said, "and then I am coming back with the sheriff. You will both regret this." He spurred his horse and his men followed, kicking up dust as they galloped down the road toward Park City. Nathan held his gun steady until they disappeared around the bend, then holstered it with the same smooth motion he had used to draw it. He turned to Olivia, and for the first time she saw him smile. It transformed his face, softening the hard edges. "You all right, madam?" She nodded, not trusting her voice. Now that the danger had passed, her legs felt weak as water. "Why do you not show me those papers your father kept? We need to figure out what we are dealing with before sundown." "Who are you?" The words came out as barely a whisper. "Why would you help me? You do not even know me." Nathan picked up his hat, which had fallen in the dust when he drew his gun. He slapped it against his thigh to clean it, then settled it back on his head. "My mother raised me to stand up for people who cannot stand up for themselves, and I meant what I said. I am looking for work. Heard there was a ranch around here run by a man named Lancaster." "My father is dead. He died 3 months ago." Something flickered across Nathan's face, sympathy maybe, or understanding. "I am sorry for your loss, but that does not change the fact that someone needs to help you fight for this land. Might as well be me." Olivia studied him. This stranger who had ridden up out of nowhere and faced down 3 armed men for her sake. He looked tired, she realized. Tired and dusty like he had been riding for days. But his eyes were kind, and there was something solid about him, something that made her want to trust him even though common sense said she should be more careful. "I cannot pay you much," she said. "Did I ask for pay?" He walked toward the cabin, his spurs jingling. "Let us see those papers first, then we can talk about what comes next." She led him inside, into the dim coolness of the cabin. It was small, just 2 rooms, but her father had built it sturdy. The main room held a table, 2 chairs, a stove, and a shelf lined with books. Through the open door to the back room, she could see the bed where she slept, covered with one of her mother's quilts. The strongbox sat under the table, heavy iron with a lock that her father had bought in Salt Lake City years ago. Olivia knelt beside it, her fingers fumbling with the key she wore on a cord around her neck. The lock clicked open, and she lifted the lid. Inside were papers carefully folded and stacked. Birth certificates, her mother's death certificate from 5 years ago when fever had taken her, receipts for cattle purchases, and at the bottom a document with an official seal. "This is it," she said, pulling it out. "The claim form. My father filed it in 1868, right after the war ended. He bought the land from the territorial government." Nathan took the paper carefully, holding it up to the light from the window. He read it twice, his lips moving slightly as he worked through the legal language. Then he looked at the seal, running his thumb over it. "This looks legitimate to me," he said. "Dated July 15th, 1868, signed by the territorial land agent and sealed proper. If this is genuine, then your father had legal claim to this land and you inherited it when he died. Then why did Hadley say there was no record? That is the question, is it not?" Nathan folded the paper carefully. "Could be the record got lost. Could be it was never properly entered into the books. Or could be Hadley paid someone to make it disappear so he could claim this land for himself." The possibility made Olivia's stomach turn. He would do that? He would bribe someone at the territorial office? Men have done worse for good land. Nathan handed the paper back to her. "This is valuable property. Water, timber, good grass. Worth a lot of money to the right person. And Hadley strikes me as the kind of man who takes what he wants and does not much care how he gets it." Olivia sank into one of the chairs, suddenly exhausted. "What do I do? Even if I have the papers, he said he would come back with the sheriff. What if the sheriff sides with him? Then we fight." Nathan said it simply, like it was the most natural thing in the world. "We take your papers to the territorial office in Salt Lake City and get them to confirm the claim. We talk to a lawyer and make sure everything is legal and proper. And if Hadley wants to fight dirty, then we fight dirty right back." "I do not understand. Why would you do this for me? You do not know me. You do not owe me anything." Nathan pulled out the other chair and sat down across from her. Up close, she could see the weariness in his face, the lines around his eyes that said he had seen hard times. But she could also see something else, a determination that reminded her of her father. "6 months ago, I had a ranch of my own," he said, "down in Colorado. Nothing fancy, just a small spread, but it was mine. I worked 5 years to build it up from nothing. Then a man like Hadley decided he wanted it. He had lawyers and money and connections, and I had nothing but a deed and the sweat of my labor. He took it from me, legal as could be, because I did not know how to fight him in court. By the time I figured out what was happening, it was too late." He leaned back in the chair, his jaw tight. "I swore when I lost that ranch that I would never stand by and watch it happen to someone else. So when I rode up and saw those men threatening you, I knew I had to help. Simple as that." Olivia felt tears burning behind her eyes again. But this time they were not from anger or fear. "I am sorry you lost your ranch. It is done. Cannot change the past. But maybe I can change the future for you." He stood, walking to the window to look out at the yard. "How much supplies do you have? Food, water, ammunition?" "Enough for a few weeks if I am careful." "Why?" "Because Hadley will be back. And when he comes, he might not be as polite as he was this morning. We need to be ready to defend this place if it comes to that. And we need to get to Salt Lake City as fast as we can to get your claim confirmed." "Salt Lake City is 4 days' ride from here." "Then we leave tomorrow morning. You have anyone who can watch the ranch while we are gone?" Olivia shook her head. "I have been running it alone since my father died. The hired hands left after he passed. They did not want to work for a woman." Nathan turned from the window, and the look he gave her was different now, appraising. You have been managing 160 acres and a herd of cattle by yourself for 3 months? I have not had much choice. That takes grit. There was respect in his voice. All right, then, here is what we're going to do. I will stay here and help you with the ranch work until we can get this claim sorted out. In return, you give me food and a place to sleep. Once everything is settled, if you still want help running the place, we can talk about wages. Fair? It was more than fair. More. It was a gift from heaven, and Olivia knew it. I accept. Thank you, Nathan. No need to thank me. We're not out of the woods yet. He looked out the window again. Sundown is still a few hours off. Hadley might come back before then, or he might wait until tomorrow. Either way, we need to be ready. You know how to shoot? My father taught me. Good. Load every gun you have and keep them close. I'm going to take a look around the property, see what we are dealing with. If I were Hadley, I would try to run off your cattle or burn your buildings to force you out. We need to make sure that does not happen. He walked to the door, then paused. One more thing. When we go to Salt Lake City, we bring that paper with us, but we also need to make copies and leave them with someone we trust. If anything happens to the original, we need backup. The preacher in Park City, Olivia said. Reverend Morrison, he was a friend of my father. I trust him. Good. We will stop there on our way out of town tomorrow. Nathan settled his hat more firmly on his head. For now, keep that paper safe and stay alert. I will be back before dark. He walked out into the afternoon sun, and Olivia watched him through the window as he swung onto his horse and rode toward the pasture where her cattle grazed. She did not know what to make of Nathan Zimmerman. He had appeared like an answer to a prayer she had not even had time to say, and he was risking his life for a stranger based on nothing more than principle and a past wrong done to him. She went back to the strong box and carefully placed her father's claim papers inside, then locked it. Nathan was right. They needed copies, and they needed to move fast. Hadley would not give up easily, and men like him had ways of making trouble that went far beyond simple threats. Olivia spent the rest of the afternoon preparing. She loaded her father's Winchester and his old Navy Colt, then checked her own rifle, a lighter carbine that she could handle more easily. She made sure there was ammunition for all of them and set them in easy reach. Then she cooked a large pot of stew, figuring Nathan would be hungry after his long ride and the confrontation with Hadley. The sun was touching the western mountains when Nathan returned. He rode in slowly, his eyes scanning the trees and rocks around the property with the wariness of a man who expected trouble. But he was alone, and when he dismounted in front of the cabin, he looked satisfied. Your cattle are all accounted for, he said. 40 head, like you said, and they look healthy. Good water in that creek and plenty of grass left before winter. Your father chose this land well. He loved it here. Olivia stepped out onto the porch. Said it reminded him of Pennsylvania where he grew up. I can see why. Nathan tied his horse to the rail and climbed the steps. No sign of Hadley or his men yet. Could be they are waiting until full dark to try something, or could be they decided to wait until tomorrow. Either way, I will keep watch tonight. You should eat first. I made stew. That smells better than anything I have had in a week. He followed her inside, and she ladled out 2 bowls of the thick stew, rich with beef and vegetables from her garden. They ate in silence for a while, the only sound the scrape of spoons against tin bowls. Finally, Nathan spoke. Tell me about your father. What kind of man was he? Olivia smiled, though it hurt. He was stubborn as a mule and twice as hard-headed, but he was also kind. He believed in doing right by people, even when it cost him. When we first came here, there was a Ute family camped near the creek. Most settlers would have run them off, but my father invited them to stay. He said there was enough land for everyone. We traded with them for years until they moved on. Sounds like a good man. He was. He taught me everything I know about ranching. How to read the weather, how to doctor sick cattle, how to mend fences and fix tack. My mother wanted me to be a lady, to go back east to school and marry well, but my father said I should learn to take care of myself first. He said a woman who could not stand on her own 2 feet would never be truly free. Nathan nodded slowly. Smart man. That is probably why Hadley thinks he can take advantage of you. He sees a woman alone and figures you will not know how to fight back. He's wrong about that. I can see that. Nathan finished his stew and set the bowl aside. But knowing how to fight and having the resources to fight are two different things. That is where I come in. I know the law, at least enough to get by. I know how to deal with men like Hadley, and I'm not afraid to do what needs doing. There was something in the way he said that last part that made Olivia look at him more carefully. Have you killed men? He met her eyes steadily. I have. During the war, and once after. A man tried to steal my horses, and when I caught him, he drew on me. I was faster. I do not regret it, but I do not take pride in it either. Killing is sometimes necessary, but it is never good. My father fought in the war too, for the Union. He never talked about it much. Most men do not. It is not something you want to remember. Nathan stood, stretching. I should get outside and keep watch. Hadley might not come, but I would rather be ready if he does. You need to sleep sometime. I will sleep when you wake me. We can take turns keeping watch until we know whether he's coming back tonight or not. Olivia wanted to argue, but she could see the sense in it. If Hadley did come back with more men, they needed to be ready. All right, I will take the first watch. Wake me in 4 hours. Nathan looked like he wanted to protest, but something in her expression must have convinced him she was serious. 4 hours? And if you see or hear anything at all, you wake me immediately. Understood? Understood. He nodded and walked into the back room, and a moment later she heard the creak of the bed as he lay down. Olivia took the Winchester and went outside onto the porch, settling into her father's old rocking chair with the rifle across her lap. The night was cool and clear, the stars bright overhead. An owl hooted somewhere in the trees, and from the pasture she could hear the occasional low call of the cattle. Normal sounds, peaceful sounds. But Olivia could not relax. She kept seeing Hadley's smug face, kept feeling the pressure of the hired gun's rifle against her temple. She had been so certain this morning that everything was over, that she would lose the ranch and have nowhere to go. Then Nathan had ridden up, and suddenly everything had changed. She did not understand it, did not understand why a stranger would risk so much for her. But she was grateful beyond words. The hours passed slowly. The moon rose, nearly full, casting silver light over the yard and the mountains beyond. Olivia rocked slowly in the chair, the Winchester heavy and reassuring in her hands. She thought about her father, about all the years he had spent building this ranch from nothing. He had come west after the war with her mother, seeking a fresh start and a place where they could build something lasting. He had found it here, in these mountains, beside this creek. And Olivia would be damned if she would let Cornelius Hadley take it away from her. When 4 hours had passed, she went inside and gently shook Nathan awake. He came alert instantly, his hand going to his gun before his eyes even opened. Then he saw her and relaxed. Anything? He asked, his voice rough with sleep. Nothing. Quiet as a church. He sat up, running a hand through his hair. Good. Go get some rest. I will wake you at dawn, and we can head into Park City to see that preacher of yours. Olivia wanted to argue that she could stay up longer, but exhaustion pulled at her like a weight. She had not slept well in weeks, always worrying about the ranch and how she would manage it alone. Now, with Nathan here to share the burden, she felt the weariness catching up with her all at once. Wake me if anything happens, she said. I will. She lay down on the bed, still warm from where Nathan had been sleeping, and pulled her mother's quilt over her. Despite her exhaustion, she expected to lie awake worrying, but sleep took her almost immediately, pulling her down into darkness. She woke to the smell of coffee and the sound of someone moving around in the main room. Pale dawn light filtered through the window, and for a moment Olivia could not remember why she felt so anxious. Then it all came rushing back. Hadley, the claim, Nathan. She got up quickly, smoothing her dress and trying to tame her hair. When she walked into the main room, Nathan was at the stove, pouring coffee into 2 tin cups. "Morning," he said. "Hope you do not mind. I made coffee." "I do not mind at all." She took one of the cups gratefully, breathing in the strong, bitter scent. "Anything happened during the night?" "Not a thing. Either Hadley decided to wait, or he is planning something bigger. Either way, we need to get to Park City and make those copies of your papers." They ate a quick breakfast of hardtack and jerky, then saddled 2 horses. Olivia rode her father's old mare, a gentle gray that had been with the family for years. Nathan rode his bay gelding, and together they started down the road toward Park City. The town was 6 miles away, nestled in a valley between steep mountains. It had started as a mining camp during the silver boom of the 60s, but by 1876 it had grown into a proper town with a main street, several stores, a saloon, a hotel, and a white-painted church with a steeple that could be seen from miles away. They rode in silence for the first few miles, both of them watching the road and the surrounding trees for any sign of Hadley or his men. But the morning was peaceful, the only sounds their horses' hooves and the call of birds in the pines. "Tell me about your ranch," Olivia said finally. "The one you lost." Nathan was quiet for a moment, his jaw tight. Then he sighed. "It was not much. 40 acres near Denver, with a creek and some timber. I bought it with my Army pay after the war ended. Spent 5 years building a cabin, clearing land, buying cattle. It was starting to make money finally when this land speculator named Garrett showed up. Said he had a prior claim to the property, and he had lawyers to back him up. Did he really have a prior claim? No, he had forged documents and a judge in his pocket. By the time I figured out what was happening, the law was on his side. They gave me a week to clear out, and that was that. I lost everything except my horse and my gun. That is terrible. Did you try to fight it?" "I tried, but I did not have money for lawyers, and I did not understand the law well enough to argue my case. I learned a lot from that experience, though. Learned how these men operate, how they use the law as a weapon to take what they want. That is why I can help you. I know what to look for, and I know how to fight back." They crested a rise, and Park City came into view below them. From this distance, it looked almost pretty. The buildings neat and orderly, smoke rising from chimneys into the cool morning air. But Olivia knew that pretty did not mean safe. Hadley had friends in Park City, including the sheriff. "We need to be careful," Nathan said, as if reading her thoughts. "If Hadley went to the sheriff last night, there could be trouble waiting for us." "Reverend Morrison will help us. I know he will." They rode down into town, passing the mining operations on the outskirts. Men were already at work, hauling ore from the tunnels and loading it into wagons. A few of them looked up as Olivia and Nathan passed, their expressions curious but not hostile. The church stood at the far end of town, a simple wooden building painted white with a small cemetery behind it. Olivia had attended services here with her father before he died, though she had not been back since the funeral. The memories were too painful. They tied their horses to the rail out front and walked up the steps. The door was unlocked, and inside the church was dim and cool, smelling of beeswax and old wood. Reverend Morrison was at the altar, arranging flowers in a vase. He looked up when they entered, and his weathered face broke into a smile. "Olivia Lancaster, it is good to see you, child." He set down the flowers and came toward them, his hands outstretched. He was an old man, well past 60, with white hair and kind eyes. "I have been worried about you all alone out there at the ranch. Reverend Morrison, I need your help." Olivia took his hands, feeling the papery texture of his skin. "Cornelius Hadley came to my ranch yesterday. He says my father never properly filed his claim and that the land belongs to him now. He gave me until sundown to leave." The Reverend's smile faded. "Cornelius Hadley. That man is a plague on this town." "I am sorry, Olivia. I know your father filed that claim properly. I was with him when he did it." Nathan stepped forward. "You were there? You saw him file the papers?" The Reverend looked at Nathan, his eyes sharp despite his age. "And who are you, young man?" "Nathan Zimmerman. I am helping Miss Lancaster fight for her land." "Are you now?" The Reverend studied Nathan for a long moment, then nodded slowly. "Good. She needs someone to stand with her. To answer your question, yes, I was there. It was July of 1868. Samuel and I rode to Salt Lake City together. I had business with the territorial church office, and he wanted to file his land claim. I was with him when he submitted the papers to the land agent. I saw the agent stamp and seal them. Do you remember the agent's name? Nathan asked. Let me think. It was a long time ago. The Reverend closed his eyes, his lips moving silently. Then his eyes opened. Winters. Harold Winters. He was the territorial land agent at the time. Is he still there? I do not know. I have not been to Salt Lake City in 5 years. My traveling days are mostly behind me. Nathan exchanged a glance with Olivia. We need you to write that down, Reverend. Everything you remember about that day. Sign it and date it. It might be important if this goes to court. Now, of course. Come to my office. He led them through a side door into a small room lined with shelves of books. A desk sat in the center, covered with papers and an old Bible. The Reverend sat down, pulled out a sheet of paper, and began to write in a careful, precise hand. When he finished, he signed it with a flourish and handed it to Nathan. There, a sworn statement that I witnessed Samuel Lancaster file his land claim in July of 1868. Will that help? It might help a lot. Nathan folded the paper carefully. Now, we need to make copies of Miss Lancaster's claim papers and leave them with you for safekeeping. Can you do that? Of course. Bring them to me. Olivia pulled the precious document from the oilskin pouch she had been carrying under her dress. The Reverend took it gently, handling it like the treasure it was. He laid it on his desk and pulled out more paper and a pen. This will take a little while, he said. The language is complex. Why do you not sit down and tell me everything that has happened? They did, and as Olivia recounted the events of the previous day, she watched the Reverend's face grow darker and darker. When she finished, he set down his pen and shook his head. Hadley is a devil, he said flatly. He came to Park City 2 years ago with money and ambition. Since then, he has bought up half the land in this valley, usually by means that are legal but not moral. He finds loopholes, exploits technicalities, and uses his money to buy cooperation from officials who should know better. Your father stood up to him once. Did you know that? Olivia shook her head. He never mentioned it. It was about a year before Samuel died. Hadley wanted to buy your ranch, offered him a good price. Samuel refused. He said the land was not for sale at any price. Hadley did not take it well. He said Samuel would regret turning him down. I suppose this is his revenge. Then we have to stop him, Nathan said. If we can prove that the original claim was filed properly and that the record was either lost or deliberately destroyed, then Miss Lancaster's claim should stand. Should, the Reverend repeated. But will it? Hadley has friends, including Sheriff Porter, and he has money for lawyers. What do you have? The truth, and I have this. Nathan tapped the statement the Reverend had written. If Hadley claims there is no record of the claim, and you testify that you saw it filed, that creates doubt. It suggests the record existed but was lost or destroyed. That might be enough to make a judge rule in Miss Lancaster's favor. Might. That is a dangerous word to bet your future on, young man. It is all we have. The Reverend finished copying the claim papers and handed the original back to Olivia. I will keep these copies safe, and if you need me to testify, I will. Samuel Lancaster was a good man, and I will not stand by and see his daughter cheated out of her inheritance. Thank you, Reverend Morrison. Olivia felt tears prickling her eyes again. You have no idea what this means to me. I have every idea, child. Now be careful. Hadley is ruthless, and he does not like to lose. If he thinks you are going to fight him, he will do everything in his power to destroy you. They left the church and mounted their horses. As they rode back through town, Olivia noticed people watching them from doorways and windows. News traveled fast in a small town, and she had no doubt that everyone knew about the confrontation at her ranch by now. We need to go to Salt Lake City, Nathan said as they reached the edge of town. Today. The sooner we get to the territorial office and find out what happened to the record of your father's claim, the better. But that is a 4-day ride. What about the ranch? What about the cattle? The cattle will be fine for a week. They have water and grass, And the cabin is sturdy enough to survive without us for a few days. We do not have a choice, Olivia. If we wait, Hadley will move against us. We need to act first." He was right, and she knew it. But the thought of leaving the ranch unguarded made her stomach clench with anxiety. It was all she had left, and if something happened while they were gone, she would have nothing. "All right," she said, "we go to Salt Lake City, but we need to pack supplies first." They rode back to the ranch, and Olivia felt her heart lift when she saw it still standing, intact and untouched. No sign of Hadley or his men. They packed quickly, taking food, blankets, ammunition, and the precious claim papers. Olivia changed into her riding clothes, sturdy pants, and a shirt that had belonged to her father, and braided her hair tightly. By noon, they were ready. Nathan checked the cinches on both saddles one more time, then swung onto his horse. 4 days there. Probably 1 day in Salt Lake City to take care of business 4 days back. We should be home in 9 or 10 days. If Hadley does not burn the place down while we are gone, he will not. He wants this land, which means he wants the buildings and the cattle intact. Burning it down would only hurt him. Olivia hoped he was right. She took one last look at the cabin, memorizing every detail, then turned her horse toward the road. They rode out together, leaving the ranch behind. The journey to Salt Lake City took them through some of the most beautiful country Olivia had ever seen. They followed old wagon roads through mountain passes, past stands of aspen that were just starting to turn gold with the coming autumn. They camped at night under the stars, taking turns keeping watch, and during the days they talked. Nathan told her about his life, about growing up on a farm in Missouri and fighting in the war when he was just 18. He told her about the battles he had seen, the friends he had lost, and the long walk home when it was all over. He told her about buying his ranch in Colorado and the 5 years of hard work that had gone into building it, only to lose everything to a man with more money and fewer scruples. Olivia told him about her childhood, about growing up on the ranch with parents who loved each other and loved the land. She told him about learning to ride before she could read, about helping with the cattle drives and the long winter nights when her father would read aloud from his books. She told him about her mother's death and the way her father had changed after that, becoming quieter, more serious, as if part of him had died too. "He never really recovered," she said on the third night as they sat by the fire. "He kept going, kept working, but the joy was gone. I think he missed her so much that he could not bear it. Sometimes I wonder if that is why he died. Maybe he just gave up." "Or maybe the horse really did spook," Nathan said gently. "Sometimes accidents are just accidents, Olivia. No deeper meaning to them." "Maybe." She stared into the fire, watching the flames dance. "I miss them both so much, my mother and my father. Some days I wake up and forget they're gone, and then I remember, and it is like losing them all over again." Nathan reached out and took her hand. His palm was rough with calluses, warm and solid. "I know. After I lost my ranch, I felt like I had lost everything that mattered, like there was no point in going on, but then I realized something. As long as you are still breathing, you have a chance to build something new. It might not be the same as what you lost, but it can still be good. It can still matter." Olivia looked at him, really looked at him, and saw past the dust and weariness to the man underneath. He was strong, not just in body but in spirit. He had lost everything and kept going. He had been hurt and betrayed, and instead of becoming bitter, he had decided to help someone else fight the same battle he had lost. "Thank you," she said softly, "for helping me, for being here. I do not know what I would have done if you had not ridden up yesterday. You would have figured something out. You are stronger than you think." "I do not feel strong." Strength is not about never being afraid. It is about doing what needs doing even when you are terrified. He squeezed her hand, then let go, and Olivia felt the loss of his touch like a cold wind. "Get some sleep. We have another long day tomorrow." She lay down in her bedroll, but sleep was a long time coming. She kept thinking about Nathan's hand in hers, about the way he looked at her like she was someone worth fighting for. She barely knew him, had met him only 2 days ago, but already she felt like he understood her better than anyone had in a long time. It was foolish to let herself feel this way, she told herself. He was helping her because it was the right thing to do, not because he cared about her personally. Once this was over, once her claim was secured, he would move on. That was what men like him did. They drifted from place to place, never settling, never putting down roots. But even knowing that, she could not stop the warmth that bloomed in her chest when she thought about him. They reached Salt Lake City on the afternoon of the 4th day. The city sprawled across the valley floor, bigger and busier than Olivia remembered from her last visit years ago. The streets were full of wagons and people, and the buildings were taller and more imposing than anything in Park City. Nathan led them straight to the territorial offices, a solid brick building in the center of town. They tied their horses outside and climbed the steps, both of them dusty and tired from the long ride. Inside, a clerk sat at a desk, writing in a large ledger. He looked up when they entered, his expression bored. "Can I help you?" "We need to speak to the territorial land agent," Nathan said. "It is about a land claim filed in 1868. The clerk sighed like this was a terrible imposition. "You will have to wait. The agent is with someone right now." They sat on a hard wooden bench and waited. An hour passed, then another. Olivia was starting to think they would be there all day when a door opened and a well-dressed man emerged, followed by another man in a suit who had to be the land agent. "Thank you for your time, Mr. Garrett," the agent said. "Everything is in order. Your claim will be processed within the week." Garrett. The name hit Olivia like a fist. She looked at Nathan and saw that he had gone pale, his hands clenched into fists. This was the man who had stolen Nathan's ranch, the land speculator who had used forged documents and a corrupt judge to take everything Nathan had worked for. Garrett walked past them without a glance, but Nathan stood, his hand dropping to his gun. For a moment, Olivia thought he might draw, might shoot the man down right there in the territorial office. But then he took a deep breath and forced his hand away from the gun. "Nathan," she whispered, "are you all right?" "No," he said through clenched teeth, "but I will be. Come on, that is the agent." They approached the man in the suit, who looked at them with mild irritation. "Yes? What do you need?" "We need to inquire about a land claim," Nathan said, his voice carefully controlled. "Filed by Samuel Lancaster in July of 1868. The property is in the Park City area, 160 acres. The agent frowned. "Lancaster. Yes, I remember that name. There was an inquiry about that property recently from Mr. Hadley, I believe." "What did you tell him?" "I told him the truth. We have no record of any claim filed by Samuel Lancaster. As far as the territorial government is concerned, that land was never claimed." "But it was," Olivia said, stepping forward. "My father filed the claim. I have the papers right here. They were stamped and sealed by the land agent at the time, Harold Winters." She pulled out the document, and the agent took it, his frown deepening as he examined it. He looked at the seal, ran his finger over the signature, then shook his head. "This appears to be genuine," he said slowly. "But I'm telling you, we have no record of it in our files. I looked myself when Mr. Hadley inquired. The filing from July of 1868 does not exist." "Then what happened to it?" Nathan demanded. "Files do not just disappear." "Sometimes they do. Records get lost, especially from the early days when things were not as organized as they are now. Or they get misfiled, or damaged by water or fire. There are many reasons why a record might not exist anymore." "Or someone might have removed it deliberately," Nathan said. The agent's expression went cold. "That is a serious accusation. It is a serious situation. Miss Lancaster is about to lose her ranch because of a missing record. We have proof that the claim was filed. We have an eyewitness who saw it filed. But you are telling us the record does not exist. That seems awfully convenient for Mr. Hadley." "I do not appreciate your tone, sir. I have been the territorial land agent for 15 years, and my integrity is beyond question." "Then prove it. Look again, find the record." "I have already told you it does not exist." Nathan leaned forward, his eyes hard. Or maybe you were paid to make it disappear. How much did Hadley give you? Or was it Garrett? I know how men like them operate. They buy cooperation from officials who should know better. The agent's face flushed red. Get out. Get out of my office right now, or I will have you arrested. We are not leaving until we get answers. Then I will call the police. The agent turned to the clerk. Get the marshal. These people are causing a disturbance. Olivia grabbed Nathan's arm. Come on, this is not helping. For a moment she thought he would refuse, would keep pushing until the marshal arrived and arrested him. But then he looked at her, and something in her face must have convinced him. He stepped back, his jaw tight. This is not over, he said to the agent. We will find the truth, with or without your help. They walked out into the afternoon sun, and Nathan's hands were shaking with rage. That man is lying. I know it. I can feel it. Garrett and Hadley are working together, and they are paying people off to steal land. Maybe, but we cannot prove it, and making accusations will not help. Olivia tried to think, tried to see past her own fear and frustration. We need to talk to Harold Winters, the original land agent. If he is still alive, he can confirm that my father filed the claim. How do we find him? The clerk, he might know what happened to Winters. They went back inside, and this time Nathan let Olivia do the talking. She approached the clerk with her most polite smile. Excuse me, can you tell me what happened to Harold Winters? He was the territorial land agent before the current one. The clerk looked up from his ledger. Mr. Winters retired 5 years ago. Lives over on Elm Street, last I heard. Number 42. Thank you. They found Elm Street easily enough, and number 42 turned out to be a small, neat house with a well-tended garden. An elderly man was sitting on the porch, smoking a pipe and reading a newspaper. He looked up when they approached, his eyes sharp despite his age. Harold Winters? Olivia asked. That is me. Who is asking? My name is Olivia Lancaster. This is Nathan Zimmerman. I need to ask you about a land claim my father filed in 1868. Samuel Lancaster. Do you remember him? Winters set down his newspaper and took the pipe from his mouth. Lancaster. Yes, I remember him. Good man. Came in with a preacher, wanted to file a homestead claim in the Park City area. I processed the paperwork myself. Olivia felt a surge of hope. You remember? So the claim was filed properly? Of course it was. I ran that office for 20 years, and I never made mistakes with the paperwork. Why are you asking? Because the current land agent says there is no record of the claim. He says it does not exist. Winters' expression darkened. That is impossible. Every claim I processed was entered into the record books and filed properly. If the record is missing, someone removed it. Can you testify to that? Nathan asked. Can you swear in court that you processed Samuel Lancaster's claim in July of 1868? I can and I will. Samuel Lancaster was a good man, and if his daughter is being cheated out of her inheritance, I will not stand for it. He stood, setting his pipe aside. Tell me everything. They did, and as they talked, Winters' face grew grimmer and grimmer. When they finished, he nodded slowly. This sounds like the kind of scheme I have heard about. Land speculators paying officials to lose records so they can claim the land for themselves. It has been happening more and more since the silver boom started. There is too much money involved and not enough oversight. Will you help us? Olivia asked. Will you testify? I will do more than that. I will go to the current agent tomorrow and demand that he explain what happened to that record. If he has been taking bribes, I will make sure everyone knows it. Be careful, Nathan warned. These men are dangerous. They have already threatened Miss Lancaster, and they will not hesitate to threaten you too. I am an old man, Winters said with a smile. I have lived a long life, and I am not afraid of men like Hadley or Garrett. They can threaten all they want. It will not stop me from doing what is right. They spent the night in a boarding house, and the next morning Winters accompanied them back to the territorial office. The agent's face went pale when he saw the old man walk in. Harold, he said, his voice strained, what are you doing here? I am here to ask you about a missing record, Winters said. Samuel Lancaster filed a land claim in 1868. I processed it myself. This young woman has the stamped and sealed papers to prove it, so why are you telling her the record does not exist? Because it does not. I looked. It is not in the files. Then where did it go? I do not know. Records get lost sometimes, you know that. Not my records. I kept meticulous files, and I trained my successor to do the same. If a record is missing, someone removed it deliberately. The agent's face was slick with sweat now. That is a serious accusation. It is the truth, and I will testify to it in court if necessary. Winters turned to Olivia. You have the original papers, which I stamped and sealed myself. That should be enough to prove your claim. Take them to a lawyer and file suit against Hadley. I will testify that your father's claim was legitimate and properly filed. Thank you, Olivia said, her voice thick with emotion. Thank you so much. They left the office with Winters' promise to help, and for the first time since Hadley had shown up at her ranch, Olivia felt like she might actually win this fight. But Nathan was still tense, his eyes constantly scanning the street around them. What is wrong? She asked. Garrett, he was here yesterday, which means he is working with Hadley. They are probably planning something and we need to be ready for it. We should get back to Park City as fast as we can. They left Salt Lake City that afternoon, pushing their horses hard. The return journey took only 3 days instead of 4, but they were exhausting days. They rode from dawn until dusk, stopping only to rest the horses and grab a few hours of sleep. Nathan was constantly on edge, watching the trail behind them like he expected an ambush at any moment. On the 3rd day, as they neared Park City, they saw smoke rising from the direction of Olivia's ranch. Her heart seized in her chest. No, she whispered, please, no. They spurred their horses into a gallop, racing down the road toward the ranch. As they crested the final rise, Olivia saw the cabin still standing, untouched. But the barn was burning, flames shooting high into the sky and thick smoke billowing across the pasture. She kicked her horse harder, racing into the yard. Nathan was right behind her, already pulling his rope from his saddle. They dismounted running, and Nathan headed for the well while Olivia ran to check on the cattle. Most of them had scattered, frightened by the fire and the smoke. But a few were still in the corral near the barn, panicking and trying to break through the fence. Olivia opened the gate and they thundered out, running for the open pasture. Nathan was hauling buckets of water from the well, throwing them at the barn, but it was already too late. The fire had taken hold and the old wood was burning like kindling. He stepped back, coughing from the smoke. It is gone, he said. We cannot save it. Olivia stood beside him, watching her father's barn burn. He had built it himself, cutting every board and driving every nail. She had helped him, holding the boards while he nailed them in place. Now it was nothing but flames and smoke. Hadley did this, she said, her voice shaking with rage. He did this while we were gone. Probably, but we cannot prove it. Nathan's face was grim. This is a warning. He is telling you that he can hurt you anytime he wants, and there is nothing you can do about it. Then we hurt him back. How? We have no proof he set this fire, and even if we did, the sheriff is his friend. He would not do anything about it. Olivia watched the barn collapse in on itself, sending up a shower of sparks. Everything inside was gone. Tools, hay, saddles, all the equipment her father had accumulated over 8 years, thousands of dollars worth of loss, and there was nothing she could do about it. We go to a lawyer, she said. Like Winters suggested, we file suit against Hadley and we force him to prove his claim. If he cannot, then the land stays mine. That could take months, maybe years, and lawyers cost money. I have some money saved. My father always kept cash in the strongbox for emergencies. It is not much, but it might be enough. Nathan looked at her, and there was admiration in his eyes. You are not going to give up, are you? This is my home. My father built it with his own hands. I will fight for every acre, no matter how long it takes. He smiled, and it was like the sun breaking through clouds. Then I will fight with you for as long as it takes. They spent the rest of the day dealing with the aftermath of the fire. Nathan made sure the embers were all out so they would not spread to the cabin or the pasture. Olivia rounded up as many of the scattered cattle as she could find, counting heads and making sure none had been injured in the panic. By nightfall, she had accounted for all but 3. Either they had run too far to be found, or someone had stolen them in the chaos. Either way, she had lost cattle on top of losing the barn. They ate a cold dinner in the cabin, too exhausted to cook. Olivia kept thinking about the long legal battle ahead, about the money it would cost and the uncertainty of the outcome. But she also thought about Harold Winter's promise to testify, about Reverend Morrison's sworn statement, about the stamped and sealed papers that proved her father's claim. She had weapons in this fight. She was not helpless. "Tomorrow we go back to Park City and find a lawyer," Nathan said, echoing her thoughts. "The sooner we file suit, the better. We need to stop Hadley before he does any more damage." "Agreed." Olivia looked across the table at him. This man who had come into her life just a week ago and turned everything upside down. "Nathan, why are you doing this? You could have moved on by now, found another ranch to work, made a new start somewhere else. Why are you staying to help me?" He was quiet for a long time, his eyes on the table. Then he looked up, and the expression in his face made her breath catch. "Because when I look at you, I see someone worth fighting for," he said simply. "Because you remind me of why I worked so hard to build my ranch in the first place. Not for the money or the land, but for the chance to build something that mattered, something that would last. And because, if I am being honest, I have not felt this way about anyone in a long time." Olivia's heart was pounding so hard she thought he must be able to hear it. "Felt what way?" "Like I have found something worth staying for." He reached across the table and took her hand, the same way he had done by the campfire on the trail. But this time he did not let go. "I know we have only known each other a week. I know this is not the best time to say any of this with everything else that is happening, but I need you to know. I am not here just because I want to help you fight Hadley. I am here because I want to be here, with you." Olivia could hardly breathe. "Nathan, I feel the same way. I have been trying to tell myself it is too soon, that I barely know you, but the truth is I feel like I have known you my whole life, like you were meant to ride up that day and save me." He stood, coming around the table, and pulled her to her feet. For a moment they just stood there, hands clasped, looking at each other. Then he cupped her face with his free hand, his thumb brushing across her cheek. "Can I kiss you?" he asked, his voice rough. "Yes," she whispered. He leaned down, and his lips met hers, gentle at first, then deeper as she responded. Olivia felt like she was falling and flying at the same time, her whole body alive with sensation. She wrapped her arms around his neck, pulling him closer, and he made a sound low in his throat that sent heat racing through her. When they finally broke apart, both of them were breathing hard. Nathan rested his forehead against hers, his hands on her waist. "I have wanted to do that since the moment I saw you," he said. "Then why did you wait so long?" she asked, and he laughed, a real laugh that made her smile. "Because I was trying to be a gentleman, trying to focus on helping you instead of thinking about how beautiful you are." "I am covered in dust and smoke. I probably smell like a barn." "You smell perfect." He kissed her again, slower this time, savoring it. "And you are the most beautiful woman I have ever seen." They stood there in the dim cabin holding each other. And for the first time since her father died, Olivia felt like she was not alone. She had someone to stand with her, someone who believed in her and would fight beside her no matter what came. Eventually they pulled apart, both of them reluctant. "We should sleep," Nathan said. "Tomorrow is going to be a long day." "Stay," Olivia said. "Do not sleep on the floor. The bed is big enough for both of us." He hesitated, and she could see him struggling between desire and propriety. "Olivia, if I stay, I do not know if I will be able to keep my hands to myself." "Then do not." She took his hand and led him to the bedroom. "I want this, Nathan. I want you." What happened next was both tender and urgent, a coming together of two people who had found each other in the middle of chaos and held on tight. Afterward, they lay tangled together in her mother's quilt, and Olivia felt peace settle over her like a benediction. "I love you," Nathan said into the darkness. "I know it is too soon to say it, but I do not care. I love you, Olivia Lancaster." "I love you too," she whispered, and knew it was true. They woke early the next morning and rode into Park City to find a lawyer. There were only two in town, and one of them worked for Hadley. The other was a young man named Thomas Reed who had just moved to Park City from Denver. He listened carefully as Olivia explained the situation, his eyes sharp and intelligent behind wire-rimmed spectacles. "This is fraud," he said when she finished. "Clear and simple. Hadley bribed the territorial land agent to remove the record of your father's claim so he could claim the land for himself. With Harold Winter's testimony and the original papers, we have a strong case." "How long will it take?" Nathan asked. "That depends. If we can get it before a judge quickly, maybe a few months. But Hadley will fight, and he has money for lawyers. It could drag on for a year or more." Olivia's heart sank. "I do not know if I can last that long. He already burned my barn. What if he burns the cabin next, or kills my cattle?" Reed leaned back in his chair, thinking, "We need to get an injunction, a court order that prevents Hadley from taking any action against you or your property until the case is resolved. That would stop him from doing any more damage." "Can you get one?" "I can try, but I will need to file the suit first, and that requires a fee, $50. Olivia swallowed hard. $50 was a lot of money, but she had enough in her father's strongbox. Barely. "I can pay that." "Good. Then we start today. I will need to see all your documents, and I will need written statements from Harold Winters and Reverend Morrison." They spent the rest of the day at Reed's office going over every detail of the case. He wrote everything down in neat, precise handwriting, asking questions and making notes. By the time they finished, the sun was setting, and Olivia's head was pounding. "I will file the suit tomorrow morning," Reed said, "and I will request an emergency injunction based on the barn burning. If the judge agrees that Hadley is trying to force you off the land by destroying your property, he should grant the injunction." "How soon will we know?" "A few days at most. I will send word as soon as I hear anything." They rode back to the ranch in the twilight, both of them exhausted. But Olivia felt a spark of hope for the first time in days. They were fighting back. They were not just victims anymore. Over the next week, life settled into a new rhythm. Nathan worked the ranch during the day, repairing fences and tending the cattle. Olivia cooked and cleaned and helped with the outdoor work when she could. At night, they fell into bed together, exhausted but happy, finding comfort in each other's arms. The word came from Reed on the 8th day. The judge had granted the injunction. Hadley was forbidden from taking any action against Olivia or her property until the case was resolved. If he violated the injunction, he would be held in contempt of court and could face jail time. "This is good news," Reed wrote in his letter, "but be careful. Men like Hadley do not always respect court orders. Keep your guns loaded and stay alert." Hadley must have received word of the injunction because he showed up at the ranch the next day, but this time he came alone, and he stayed on the road, not crossing onto Olivia's property. "You think you have won," he called out, "but this is just the beginning. I will tie you up in court for years. I will bleed you dry with lawyer fees. And in the end, I will still take this land." Nathan walked out onto the porch, his hand on his gun. "Or maybe you will lose, and everyone will know you are a fraud and a thief. How will that look for your business, Hadley? How many people will want to deal with a man who steals land from widows and orphans?" Hadley's face went red. "You have no proof of anything." "We have Harold Winters' testimony. We have the original claim papers, and we have a judge who is willing to listen. That is more proof than you have." For a moment, Hadley looked like he might do something reckless. Then he turned his horse and rode away, and Olivia let out the breath she had been holding. "He is not going to give up," she said. "No, but neither are we." The case dragged on through the fall, and into winter. There were hearings and depositions, legal arguments and counter-arguments. Reed worked tirelessly, and Harold Winters came to Park City to testify just as he had promised. Reverend Morrison testified too, and the original claim papers were presented as evidence. Hadley's lawyers argued that the papers were forgeries, that Winters was lying, that there was no proof the claim had ever been filed. But Reed was prepared for every argument. He brought in a document expert who confirmed that the papers were genuine, that the seal and signature were authentic. He presented evidence that other land claims from 1868 had also gone missing from the territorial office, suggesting a pattern of fraud. As the months passed, Olivia and Nathan grew closer. They worked the ranch together, survived the harsh Utah winter together, and built a life together. In February, Nathan proposed. It was not fancy or romantic. He just asked her one morning while they were feeding the cattle in the cold. "Marry me," he said. "I do not have a ring, and I do not have much money, but I love you more than anything in this world. Marry me, Olivia." She said yes without hesitation. They were married by Reverend Morrison in the little white church in Park City on a snowy March afternoon. There were only a few guests, but Olivia did not care. She wore her mother's wedding dress, carefully preserved in the trunk at the foot of the bed, and Nathan wore his best shirt and a new vest he had bought for the occasion. When the Reverend pronounced them husband and wife, Nathan kissed her like it was the first time all over again, and Olivia felt her heart swell with so much happiness she thought it might burst. The legal battle finally came to an end in April of 1877, nearly 8 months after Hadley had first shown up at the ranch. The judge ruled in Olivia's favor, declaring that the original claim was legitimate and that the missing record from the territorial office had likely been removed fraudulently. Hadley was ordered to cease all claims to the property and to pay Olivia's legal fees. When Reed brought them the news, Olivia burst into tears. Nathan held her while she cried, his own eyes suspiciously bright. "It is over," he kept saying. "It is finally over." But it was not quite over. Hadley, furious at losing, came to the ranch one last time. He was drunk, and he had a gun. "You took what was mine," he slurred, standing in the yard. "You and your hired gun. You think you are so smart. You think you won, but I will show you." He drew his gun, but he was so drunk he could barely hold it steady. Nathan stepped in front of Olivia, his own gun already drawn. "Put it down, Hadley," he said. "This is over. You lost. Do not make it worse." "It is not over until I say it is over." Hadley raised the gun, pointing it at Nathan. The shot echoed across the valley, sharp and final, but it was not Hadley's gun that fired. Nathan's bullet hit Hadley in the shoulder, spinning him around and knocking the gun from his hand. He fell to the ground, screaming and clutching his shoulder. Olivia ran to get bandages while Nathan kept his gun trained on Hadley. They bandaged the wound. Then Nathan tied Hadley's hands and threw him in the back of a wagon. "I am taking him to the sheriff, Nain," Nathan said. "He came here armed and tried to kill us. Even the sheriff cannot ignore that." The sheriff did not ignore it. Hadley was arrested and charged with attempted murder. At the trial, he was sentenced to 5 years in prison. His business empire collapsed without him, and his properties were sold to pay his debts. With Hadley gone, life at the ranch finally became peaceful. Nathan and Olivia rebuilt the barn, bigger and better than before. They bought more cattle and hired 2 hands to help with the work. The ranch prospered, and so did their marriage. In the spring of 1878, Olivia gave birth to their first child, a boy they named Samuel after her father. He had Nathan's dark hair and Olivia's green eyes, and he was the most beautiful thing either of them had ever seen. 2 years later, a daughter arrived, and they named her Grace after Olivia's mother. Then another son, then another daughter. The cabin became too small, so Nathan built an addition, then another, until it was a proper house with 4 bedrooms and a parlor. Harold Winters came to visit sometimes, and he always smiled when he saw how well Olivia and Nathan were doing. "Your father would be proud," he told her every time. "You fought for what was yours and you won." Reverend Morrison grew old and eventually passed away, but before he died, he made Nathan promise to keep attending church and raising the children in the faith. Nathan kept that promise. just like he kept all his promises. The years flowed by like water in the creek that never ran dry. The children grew, and some of them stayed on the ranch while others went off to seek their fortunes elsewhere. Samuel, the eldest, took over the ranch when Nathan and Olivia grew too old to run it themselves, and he proved to be as good a rancher as his grandfather had been. Nathan and Olivia lived to see their grandchildren born and even a few great-grandchildren. They grew old together, their hair turning gray and then white, their faces lined with the years of laughter and hard work. On their 50th wedding anniversary, their children threw them a party. The whole valley came, it seemed like, to celebrate the couple who had fought for their land and won, who had built a life together against all odds. That night, as they sat on the porch of the house Nathan had built, watching the sun set over the mountains, Olivia took his hand. "Do you ever regret it?" she asked. "Stopping that day when you saw Hadley threatening me? Your life would have been simpler if you had just ridden on." Nathan laughed, the sound warm and familiar. "Simpler, maybe, but not better. Everything good in my life came from that decision. You, our children, this ranch, all of it. I would make the same choice 1,000 times over." "I love you, Nathan Zimmerman." "I love you too, Olivia Zimmerman." They sat together in the twilight, hands clasped, and watched the stars come out one by one. Below them, the ranch spread out in the valley, the cattle grazing peacefully, the lights of the new barn glowing warm in the darkness. It was not the same ranch Olivia's father had built, but it was built on the same foundation, on the same belief that hard work and determination could create something lasting. And it had lasted. Through fire and fraud, through legal battles and gunfights, through the hard years and the good years, it had lasted because two people had decided it was worth fighting for. Olivia thought about that day when Hadley had pressed a gun to her head and told her she had no right to her claim. She thought about Nathan riding up like an answer to a prayer, about the long fight that followed, about all the times she had wanted to give up but kept going because he was beside her. They had fought for every acre, and they had won. Not just the land, but a life together, a family, a legacy that would outlast them both. As the night deepened and the air grew cool, they went inside together, closing the door on another day. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new joys, new reasons to be grateful for the life they had built. But tonight, they were simply content. Two people who had found each other against all odds and held on tight through everything the world threw at them. The ranch would stand long after they were gone, a testament to the truth that sometimes the best things in life are worth fighting for, and that love once found can overcome any obstacle. Samuel Lancaster's daughter had fought for her inheritance and won, but she had gained something far more valuable than land. She had found a partner, a love, a home, not just in the acres she defended, but in the heart of the man who had helped her fight for them. And in the end, that was the greatest victory of all.